your weekend plans set. And of course, the previous weekend was also a long one. So I hope you have a good weekend planned for you, relaxing weekend if you went traveling the last weekend. And I hope you had a great week. So, well, with that, let's get started. Today's webinar is about power skills. And this particular session is going to focus on how power skills are key to anyone's career success, to your career success, to my career success, to all of our career success. And before we, of course, look at the agenda, before we uh, uh, proceed with the session, right, let's talk about a few things. So you would be able to, of course, use the chat window to send any answers to the questions that I might ask. So during the session, I would ask a few questions. So do send your answers in the chat window. You can also send out any comments in the chat window, but I would request you to keep your questions and add them to question and answer tab, right? So that's one of the options that you would see, Q&A. So make sure that you type your questions in Q&A window so that they don't get mixed up with the comments, because of which we might not be able to pick them up, right? So that's one of them. And second thing, of course, is you can raise your hand. You can also send emoticons in the chat window so that we know what's happening, right? We have also included something called a Mentimeter for a couple of different questions that I will have for you, so that you can answer those and we can again keep it engaging instead of just me speaking, because I know your mics are muted for this one. Great. So, well, with that, let's get started. A quick introduction from my end. My name is Vivek, and I am primarily a learning and development professional, a consultant. I have around 14 years of experience. Of course, I started my career in one of the MNCs. And when I moved to learning and development function, within a couple of years, I have stuck to this particular field since then. I primarily work on soft skills, leadership skills, power skills, right, as a consultant, designing programs, delivering trainings, designing content, and coaching and conducting train the trainer certifications as well. I've worked with multiple organizations, to name a few: Wipro, Hewlett Packard, DXC Technology, Sony, right? So various projects with different organizations. So, well, that's a little bit about me. And with that, let's quickly jump into the agenda for today's session. So, of course, we are going to understand what power skills are and how they are important. We will take a look at the 4 key power skills that we're going to talk about during this session. And of course, 1 hour is not enough to talk about any single power skill. And since we are going to cover 4 of them, we will keep it brief. We will talk about how they relate to your career success, how they relate to your success as an individual, and we will explore methods that you can use to develop these key power skills. Okay, so that's the agenda for today's session. And let's start with a couple of small stories. And I'm sure you would be aware of 2 legendary folks that we are talking about through these stories, right? So for this, I would request you to use the chat window while I speak about these 2 successful humans. Do guess who we are talking about, right? So, well, the first one is to do with a car brand, right? An Indian car brand. And the story goes back to, there you go. Okay. Perfect. I think I had to blur the image a bit more. But yes, let's still talk about the context here. So back in 1990s, when Indian economy was opening up, right? Uh, a lot of car brands, Indian car brands, they were partnering and collaborating with foreign car brands to really give the value added cars, right, to the Indian audience, Indian public. And because of that, of course, the brand's manufacturers did not also have a lot of capability to design something indigenous on their own, right? So they had to collaborate with a lot of these foreign operators, foreign manufacturers, correct? And that was the thing, and that's why the cars were pretty expensive back then. And that's when this amazing human being, this legend, Ratan Tata, decides to go for an indigenously built car. And that car, of course, is famously known as Indica, which you very correctly guessed. And that was pretty quick. So that's amazing, right? So we are talking about Ratan Tata. And of course, he is known for his compassion to really create products for people which are affordable for people, right? For middle class families in India. And that's how the car brand, or some of the cars that they released, also came to be known as the common man's car, right? So absolutely. Great. Well, let's talk about the next legend here. Now, this is to do with, and I'm sure you'll be able to guess this one as well immediately. This is to do with a famous phone brand, right? And rather, let's call it technology brand, which, of course, started with computers, and then they launched this amazing product called, it was a small product which could fit in thousands of songs, right? And it had an amazing style. There you go. I see one iPad coming there. That's right. And then of course the iPhone came out, which included all the three features. You could, talk to people through it. You could play games. You could listen to music, right? And how Steve Jobs really drives innovation through his products. He is, of course, famous for that. Again, it is that perseverance with which he drives innovation, with which he really, you know, make sure that the products are not just really awesome. They are also, they what focused on privacy of people, right? And they come with some amazing, cool features, and they are stylish at the same time, right? So, of course, Steve Jobs is who we are talking about. Now, these two men, they are legend not just because of their technical abilities, but also power skills, right? And since you were able to guess both of them quickly, I'm sure what power skills we are talking about, you are aware of that. So let's quickly now jump to this engaging activity that I have for you, right? So all you need to do is go to menti.com, and you need to enter this particular code on menti.com. You can also just scan the QR code that you see, and you will see three options over there. And you need to enter three things, maybe, two responses to what comes to your mind when you hear power skills, right? And let's see what kind of word cloud we come up with. So please access menti.com. You can also scan this QR code, and I'm also going there so that we can, get your responses and take a look at them. The code is right there on the screen. In fact, let me also send you the code in the chat so that you can easily access it. Just a moment. Okay, you would see the link as well as the code in the chat window. So let's head to menti.com and let's take a look at it. I've stopped sharing my screen for a moment so that we can head to menti.com and take a look at the responses. Okay, I see a lot of responses have come in, and let me try to get a copy of this so that we can take a look at it. It's just humongous, a lot of responses, but I think you got it all right. You know what we are talking about. So that makes it easy for all of us, right? We will be able to directly talk about these topics. And I'm also trying to send this image in the chat window, not able to paste it. That's not a problem. Let's continue. You got it all right. Communication skills, I see time management, I see leadership, innovation, attitude, an amazing number of responses, which is brilliant. So well, let's go back to our presentation here. Great. Okay, yes. So we are talking about power skills, and power skills are also known as soft skills, interpersonal skills, and people skills, as you guessed very correctly through that question. It's about your personal attributes, right? As to how you go about interacting with other people, how you communicate with other people, how you build those relationships, and create a community of engagement around you at work, outside work. Now, power skills, of course, are not only technical. They are crucial for success in diverse variety of situations that you might be in through life. Okay. So that's what power skills is. Let's quickly take a look at comparison between power skills and technical skills. We can also call them soft skills and hard skills. Now, of course, soft skills is a very personal and subjective matter, which is hard to measure. It is intangible. You cannot very clearly say that, hey, I achieved 10 because of this soft skills. But with hard skills, you can very easily, first of all, learn it. It's teachable, it is measurable, and it's easy to quantify. You can say that I completed X amount of code, right? I know this particular language and I know how to code in it. I can speak this language. I can clear some assessments. I can answer some questions on an exam paper. So that's what hard skills is. Now, soft skills, of course, is related to how you go about handling different situations in life, right? What are your personal characteristics, your traits, personality traits, your attitude towards how you do things, which is very difficult to prove, correct? You need to go through it, display it. When it comes to hard skills, you can very easily say that, okay, I have this certification, I have completed this degree or this diploma, this award, and that's what I have learned, and I know how to do this. Now, primary difference between hard skills and soft skills is that hard skills will get you to a job interview, but soft skills is what will get you hired. And especially now when all the companies are focusing a lot on employee value proposition, they're focusing on the culture that a candidate really fits, right? So when it comes to success, it is absolutely important. Now let's take a look at some of key highlights, data points as well, right? So LinkedIn did this survey where 57% of the leaders said that soft skills are more important than hard skills for success, right? For somebody to be able to perform their job better. And Harvard University also did this study, which reveals that 85% contribution to promotions and career success is attributed to soft skills. However, 15% hard skills, only 15% is what hard skills contributes, right? And that's the importance of soft skills. There's another particular data point here. This is done by World Economic Forum. And of course, through surveys, through research and studies, they suggested the top 10 skills of 2025. This was done in 2020. And if you take a look at this list, only 2 skills are hard skills, which are to do with technology and development. The rest are all soft skills, right? So that's the importance of soft skills. And if you also talk about this, when you take a look at it, put a lens of logic, you would see that when you start your career afresh as a fresher, the first few levels, the first few ranks are the ranks where you are just following orders. You have a set process that you follow. You're supposed to complete some tasks, and once those tasks are taken care of, you are good to go. However, when you progress up the ladder, you either get into a managerial role from where you lead towards a leadership role, or you get into, even as a technical expert, you get into a role as an individual contributor where you do face clients, you do talk to stakeholders, and you represent your organization. So you do need to showcase your power skills as much as your technical skills, right? So as you move up the ladder, and this very clearly shows success depends a lot on power skills. Power skills are crucial for success, right? Great. Give me a yes in the chat window if you all agree with this. Success, power skills is crucial for success, right? And as you grow up the ladder, it's more and more important. Brilliant. Amazing responses there. I love it. Well, let's take a look at the 4 key power skills that we're going to talk about in today's session. So we are going to take a brief look at emotional intelligence, interpersonal skills, time management, and critical thinking. I'm sure you would have heard of these, but yes, we will try to keep it brief. We will take a look at what they are, how they are beneficial, and how they relate to your career success, plus some of the key aspects or a few techniques, few tools that you can utilize to develop these. So let's start with emotional intelligence. Now, I'm sure you would have heard of emotional intelligence. You would have also heard of something called an emotional quotient and, of course, intelligence quotient, right? IQ is something that we have been told about since we were kids. So you need to understand that EQ and IQ are not the same. Emotional intelligence is also referred to as emotional quotient, but it's not similar to IQ. Okay, so if you are able to hear me clearly, and we are all back, this is what we were talking about, emotional intelligence and how emotional intelligence is different from intelligence quotient, right? So intelligence quotient is all about maybe how smart you are at solving a problem, but emotional intelligence is all about how aware you are of your own emotions, how well do you understand someone else's situation emotionally, and how you connect with them, right? So it's all about taking control of your own emotions, recognizing them, understanding them, and also understanding emotions of the others while you are interacting with them. So it's a social skill. And it's important because we should control our emotions instead of our emotions controlling them. And I have a few scenarios to talk about to focus on this particular point, right? So imagine there are 5 situations that you're in, very common office situations, and we'll take a look at how you might be perceived by others depending on how you behave in these situations, right? So your boss, your manager is giving you feedback, constructive feedback on maybe a piece of work that you did yesterday. There were some errors in it, there were some mistakes that you made, and your boss is giving you feedback. Now, you can either get defensive and try to justify your points, do not take the feedback positively, or you can listen to your boss, take the feedback positively, maintain that positive attitude while you talk about what was your approach, right? So that your boss also understands that maybe something that he's saying is not absolutely correct. They need to understand it too, right? So you keep that positive approach, focus on picking up the good points, growth, listen to your manager or the person giving you feedback. So that is going to definitely showcase that you are, I think the screen got disconnected again. Yeah, okay. So yes, that's going to showcase that you carry this positive attitude of growth mindset. You are focused on improving, you are focused on growing, and that's how you would be perceived. Now, let's take another example. There is an office meeting that's happening, and there is a disagreement that happened with one of your colleagues in that office meeting. Now, both of you have a completely different point of view. Your approach is different, and you're talking about my method is correct. So you can either stay in that disagreement, right? You can choose to fight and win because winning is important for you, or you can try to talk through it, focusing on the end goal, focusing on the result, finding a common ground. And of course, others are observing. If you take the first step, controlling your emotions, taking that first step to meet your colleague, on a common ground, you would be the one who would be perceived as, again, positive, result-oriented, and mature, right? Another situation is, let's say there is a change that's coming through, and of course, changes are not easy for any of us, right? When there is a sudden change, it's difficult to get adjusted to it. So when changes are happening in organization and you are the one who accepts it, you are the one who's trying to drive it within your team, you take it positively, that would again show your adaptability to your superiors, to your manager and colleagues, right? And they would start to start to look at you as a leader, right? So that's where it starts from. Now, imagine there is a colleague in your team who is stressed, right? So when you support this colleague, making sure that you empathize, right? Making sure that you are there to help with what you can without really giving them advices, right? They would take it positively. They would see that, okay, this person was there to support me. And others would also look at you as a person who can team well. Is a good team player and is reliable, right? Similarly, if you listen to a customer, right, make sure that you keep your calm, even if the customer is frustrated, and solve their problem. You will definitely get a good survey rating. You will get a good voice of customer. And to your team, to your manager, when you control your emotions and handle this situation well, you would seem like a client-centric person. And these are some of the aspects that any company looks at when they want to give you promotion, when they interview you, right? So that's how emotional intelligence plays a key role in all kind of situations. Now let's take a look at how we can hack our emotions, right? So emotions is not a bad thing. Emotion itself is not a bad thing. It's the way we react to that emotion, which can have a positive or a negative consequence, correct? So we need to start from being self-aware. Whenever you feel like there is some pleasant feeling that you have or unpleasant feeling you have about a particular situation, you need to slow down, step back, think about why this is happening to you. Why are you feeling this way? Why are you feeling angry or frustrated, right? Think through this. Maybe you don't really have to feel angry in that situation. Maybe it's just the perspective that you need to understand, right? So when you step back, take a look at the bigger picture, you'll be able to understand the impact it might have if you get angry or get frustrated, and you will be able to calm yourself down. So do not react immediately. Slow down, take a step back, and think. Reflection is also very important. Now, it's not easy for us to be emotionally well in all the situations. We do tend to react, we do tend to lose it sometimes, but it is important that you frequently reflect upon those situations, and from there you try to understand what are some of your triggers which make you angry, which get you frustrated, right? An example of this would be, in my case, for that matter, if somebody is asking repeated questions which are very obvious, which they can find answers to very easily, right? And they keep asking you a particular situation, sometimes beyond the point, it does trigger you, right? So these are just a couple of examples. At workplace, you can see a lot of triggers. Maybe there is a colleague that you work with who loves to boast about what he or she has done, right? So that might trigger you. There are some people who love to talk and they do not give you chance to talk. That could trigger you. So we need to identify these triggers, find that pattern, and make sure you first of all are aware of how this trigger leads to a particular behavior from your end, and from there you will be able to slowly control it, slowly respond in a different way in that situation, and come out the winner, right? Now, the second aspect of hacking your emotions, of course, is social awareness, and empathy is key to it. I'm sure you would have heard of empathy. Give me a shout out in the chat window if you know what empathy is. Perfect. Great. I see a lot of yeses. I also saw a couple of messages that the voice wasn't clear. I hope it's all good now. So we'll continue. Great. So for those who might not really know what empathy is, or for you to understand the difference between sympathy and empathy, let me give you a very simple and relatable example. So imagine you get a call from your friend. Now, this friend who's calling you is a very close friend to you, right? Uh, and this friend is sobbing on the phone, is crying, saying that my girlfriend or boyfriend left me, right? Is breaking up with me. Now, how do you respond to this close friend? Uh, you say, hey, I'm coming there right now. Let's talk about it. You go there, you be that support that they require, right? You don't try to advise them a lot. You try to fix the situation or make them feel, better by being there, by listening to them. On the other hand, if this person who called you is just a regular friend, not a close friend, just somebody you know, you don't consider this person a very close friend, right? If this friend calls you about the same situation and is crying, you might tend to say things like, uh, hey, it's all right. It happens to all of us. It will get better. You will find someone better soon. Maybe she was not right for you or he was not right for you. So you try to give them some advice without really connecting with how they're feeling. So when you respond in this manner, this is sympathy. And this is very common in our culture, if you notice this. And on the other hand, empathy is where you really are there listening to the person. You don't try to assume that this is how the other person's situation is like. And you don't try to, at all try to tell them that, hey, I've been through the similar kind of situation. I know how it feels, right? Because they're going to feel bad when you say something like that. Listening is very important, and you ask them questions as to how they're feeling, what do they want to do about it, to help them clear their mind instead of giving them advices. Advices are not good for empathy, right? So there are two aspects to emotional intelligence. First, self-awareness. Second, social awareness. And to hack emotional intelligence, these are the two aspects that we focus on. Empathy playing a key role here. Great. So that's emotional intelligence. Now let's take a look at the next topic briefly, which is interpersonal skills. Now, of course, interpersonal skills kind of covers almost everything because interpersonal skills is synonymous to people skills or social skills. Emotional intelligence is also a part of this, right? But we want to focus primarily on communication and relationship building, because these are a couple of key skills which will help you succeed in your career. I'm sure you do understand what interpersonal skills are. So let's take a look at effective communication skills and relationship building. Now, we all communicate through various modes of communication, but do we communicate effectively is what the question is, right? Again, we are talking about concepts like listening, empathy over here. We are talking about how clear you can be, how good are you with your verbal as well as non-verbal communication. And when you build relationships, how long-lasting relationships those are, right? How do you build rapport? How do you make sure that you build that trust with the people around you? So these are the two very key, most important interpersonal skills, which we will focus on next couple of slides. And of course, this list is just long. Interpersonal skills, it's got hundreds of different topics which fall under it. Okay. Now, especially talking about communication skills, I started my career back in 2008. And back then as well, communication skills was one of the hot topics. Everybody wanted to learn it. And even today, all the companies, all the organizations, everybody is asking for communication skills. So that proves how important they are. That proves how much more there is still to do. And that's why the focus on communication skills. Okay. What are some of the benefits of interpersonal skills? Of course, in today's world, if you want to grow, you need to build your network, your professional network, so that you can find the right opportunities for you, because the world is full of information now. It's not like before, and you can really plan and decide how you want to make your next move, or how do you want to take that next promotion. And to get that, you really need to build your network. You need to build rapport with people in your organization, outside your organization, be connected with them, show them your expertise on LinkedIn, all the other platforms, right? So it's pretty complex. And that's why interpersonal skills are even more important. They, of course, help you improve your productivity. It reduces your stress, right? It increases how you engage with people around you and your work, how much interested you are in it, correct? And of course, you can resolve conflicts and problems through interpersonal skills with clarity and direction. And that's what ultimately leads to success. Okay, talking about some of the key traits, or rather skills or areas of communication skills and relationship building. Active listening is one. Clarity and brevity. Now, by brevity, we mean concise. When you are communicating, conveying a message, you need to make sure that you use least number of words possible. You keep it as short and simple as possible so that communication is not confusing, it's clear and quick, because only then we can get to the next point, right? And get going. Non-verbal communication. So let me give you a quick fact around this. There was this study done by one of the psychologists, right, and corporate researchers. His name is Albert Mehrabian. So he did this research, and the conclusion that we drew from it, and it holds good even today, is that 93% of communication happens through nonverbal communication. And by nonverbal communication, we mean by body language. And I'm sure right now you don't see me on camera, so you are not able to understand or read some of my gestures, correct? But what comes next is tone. Tone is very important. So 33% happens through tone, 58% happens through, body language. So tone is also important. That's why it's better to talk on a phone call instead of sending an email or a chat message, because written communication is just dependent on words, and a lot can be interpreted from it. Okay, so non-verbal communication is very, very important. Feedback and adaptation, of course, when we communicate with others, it's a two-way street. You get the response, you get feedback, and it's important for you to listen to that. It's important for all of us to adapt some of the good points from there. Appreciation and recognizing the good things in others is absolutely another behavior that you can implement to build those long-lasting relationships. Consistency is another important point. When you're doing all of this, you need to do it consistently. Only then it stays with you. So let's take a quick look at a model that you can follow to build upon your interpersonal skills, which you have been developing since childhood, subconsciously, but maybe now, in case you have not started to, you need to pay conscious attention to it and follow this process to continue to build them, because that's what's going to add to your growth. So identify your areas of improvement, right? There are 4 different key skills that we're talking about. And within those, we're talking about some key behaviors. So identify what you're already good at and what you need to build upon. For example, some of us might not be active listeners. Some of us might not be very good with nonverbal communication. So identify the areas and then focus on building the basics of the communication skills in that area first. From there, you move towards more advanced communication. Now, one of the tips that I would like to share with you is not just for spoken communication, but also for nonverbal written communication and all of it, you need to go back and maybe listen to your own voice recording. You need to read what you wrote yesterday, right? You need to record yourself in a camera and see how your body language is. And this is the best way to learn from your own observations, right? Because we all know what's good and what's not good. So we know, the feedback that we would be able to give to ourselves when we watch or listen to ourselves. Okay, so start from there. And then from there, you can, of course, build upon it by participating in different activities like speeches, talking to people in a particular style, something that you're focusing on. Look inwards is the next step as a part of this model. You need to really reflect. You need to, try to see what is it that you can change before you point your fingers at someone else as to, hey, that person does not allow me to talk, so I can't talk. right? So maybe think about how could you still share your point of view, right? What were those opportunities which you could intervene, talk about it without making it sound like you interrupted them? Okay, so that's an example. Practice, of course, is the key. This is something which does not happen overnight. As we said, hard skills is something which is teachable. You can pick up on them quickly, but soft skills is something which you can only build over a period of time, months, years. So if you practice on a daily basis, improve 1% each day, you will get there. And reflect on your own experience and improve from there, right? So think about, how did that meeting go that you were a part of today? Maybe you had to present to to your team or a client or a stakeholder, just yesterday. Think about how it went. What could you do better? Maybe you were in a situation outside of work where you reacted in a negative manner, right? Maybe you were angry. So think about, what could you change to really fix that, to improve from there. And that's how we can build upon interpersonal skills. Follow this model. Great. I know, as I said, there's quite a lot to talk about and very short time. In fact, to let you know, this is just like an intro webinar that we're doing. And in future, you would see individual webinars happening on each topic so that we can get into the details of these tools that we're talking about, the techniques that we're talking about, and really get something great out of it. But yes, to cover them briefly, let's look at time management. So time management, of course, as you know, it's not about maybe increasing the time that you have. It's about how you organize and prioritize your work and schedule it clearly. Now, there are three things that you see there: being busy, multitasking, and perfectionism. Sometimes we feel being busy is what means effective, being effective. Multitasking is efficiency, but that's all myth. In fact, multitasking is something which takes away your productivity, and there are various studies done on this, right? So time management is about focus and getting things done in a very structured and organized manner. Um, Benefits are obvious. Time is money, right? We can definitely buy an inch of gold, right? But I mean, we cannot buy time by money or gold, right? That's the whole point. So to improve productivity, reduce stress and work-life balance, you really need to manage time, otherwise you'll panic. Now, how do you do it? The magic formula is a 4-step process. It's very detailed. Of course, you need to spend your time and energy on this, but once you have sorted this, you will be able to follow a pattern and then continuously improve it. It's not a one-day journey. You need to continue to work on it. So start from goal setting, planning, prioritizing what matters to you more, and scheduling. Now, out of these 4, of course, we cannot delve into each, but let's take a quick look at this very important tool for prioritizing tasks, because that is something that we all struggle with, right? We have 10 number of things to do in a day, but the time is not enough. So how do you prioritize your tasks? There's something called an Eisenhower priority matrix that you can make use of. Now, according to this matrix, you have 4 quarters, 4 squares on x-axis, y-axis of urgency. From right to left, there is urgency that's increasing, and from top to bottom, the importance of your task is increasing, right? So you make a note of all these 10 tasks and you assign them this rating. You put them in these boxes. So an urgent and important task would be something like your boss calling you and asking for a report for a client meeting, which is at 6 p.m. today, right? So you would need to leave everything else and get to the urgent task. You need to do it right then and there. Number 2 is not urgent tasks, but important ones. So let's say you're working on a project, you're a developer, there is a sprint that's running, and you need to complete this particular user interface, right? Code this user interface by 30th of August. So you know you're going to spend 3 hours every day coding this, and you will be able to achieve it. So that's an example of how it is important, but not urgent, because it's very clearly planned. Some of the tasks which are urgent and not important could be bills that you need to pay, electricity bill, groceries that you need to buy, premium that you need to pay. So if you do not really do it as per your schedule, it will become urgent after a point of time, right? So that's how they move from urgent to important. And then the 4th one, not urgent and not important, This could be something like watching reels on Instagram, right? Which is very distractive nowadays. So if I can sum up everything that we do on our phone, most of the things that we do on our phone fall into this particular box, right? Gossip that we do, videos that we watch, which might not really be adding any value, which we've not planned, and they derail the rest of your plan as well. So the idea is to try to push most of your tasks to box number 2. And that's how you can make sure there's no panic, there's no urgency, and you have things under control. And try to eliminate activities in number 4 as much as you can. But yes, if they are recreational, like playing some sport because that rejuvenates you, you need to again place them in box number 2 and plan them accordingly. Right, so do take a look at this tool in detail. It's called Eisenhower Priority Matrix. This would really help you to prioritize your tasks. Great. With that, let's quickly take a look at critical thinking. And again, Steve Jobs, amazing example of critical thinking, as well as Ratan Tata, right? Come up with a brilliant idea, which is out of the box. And that's what everybody's looking for nowadays. In this world of heavy competition and disruptions, you need to come up with an idea, right? It could be a simple job that you're doing, which you can do better, or create something new, innovative. So the process of getting that done is called critical thinking. Through your judgments, through analysis, and this is what leads to creativity and innovation. And this is what all the organizations, or rather everyone, is after nowadays, right? So I have a quick video for you as well, which talks about something called analogous thinking. And this showcases how critical thinking plays a role, how you can also implement it, and how it leads to innovation. It's an example, brilliant example. Let's see. Okay, are you guys able to hear the sound? Give me a yes or a no in the chat box. No. Okay, I think I will have to quickly reshare my screen because I did not share the system sound. Just a moment. Thank you so much for your patience. I know we are going a little fast, but yes, the time allows us to only do that. Okay, share sound. There you go. You should be able to hear it this time. So playing the video for you again. This is the story of Velcro.
Who invented Velcro brand fasteners? In 1941, Swiss engineer George de Mestral goes hiking in the woods with his dog. It's all very pleasant until George notices the prickly seeds that are sticking to his clothes and his dog. At home, George puts a burdock burr under a microscope. He finds it's covered in tiny hooks that attach to clothes and fur. He says. 8 years of research later, George has invented the hook and loop fastener, which he then branded Velcro. Tiny hooks on one strip of nylon attached to loops on the other. It's a zipperless zipper, he says. But not everyone is impressed. Hook and loop gets its big break when it's used by NASA astronauts in the 1960s. Even more impressive, in the 1980s, David Letterman jumps onto a wall wearing a hook and loop suit. Today, it's used in everything from luggage to medicine. So when you hear that rip, think of George and his dog.
So that's a brilliant example of how something that we so commonly use nowadays, Velcro, is in all our lives, right? It's a part of a lot of variety of products that we use. But it was an innovation which was made through something called analogous thinking, which was not possible if you don't really observe things, if you don't really try to analyze how things are working, right? And that's what he did. And he invented Velcro. So yes, you can do this with a lot of different aspects of your life. Critical thinking leads to creativity and innovation, as we discussed. So let's take a look at some of the skills, behaviors that we need to develop for critical thinking, right? So we need to develop curiosity to make sure that we evaluate evidence. We should not take things as per their assumptions or presumptions. Evaluate evidence that you're looking at. Recognize any biases. An example of this would be, let's say, for example, we say that All right, anything that's made in China is not really reliable, correct? So that is a bias. There could be a product which might really be great. So that's just an example of bias, and these biases exist in all walks of life, right? From smallest to biggest of the issues that we look at. So make sure that there is no bias that's affecting your decision making, because critical thinking is all about solving a problem and making decisions, right? Look beyond the surface, scratch, dig, and find more data. The more data you look at, the better it is. Asking questions, very important to ask questions. Status quo is something that you need to, kind of question, and that's what breaks the bounds of thinking. That's when you tend to brainstorm, look at the world outside, and get more ideas. Consider different perspectives. Again, very important aspect. Correct. Someone else could be looking at a problem in a very different way as compared to you. So if you're not open to their approach, their perspective, you might never be able to understand what they're looking at, right? Because all of us have different perspectives, different preferences as to how we go about doing things. Weigh the pros and cons, very important again. Before you make any decision based on your gut, do weigh pros and cons. I know gut feeling is what helps us make these decisions, but do take a look at pros and cons. Again, identify assumptions which might be there while making that decision, and ideation is very important. Now, some of the tools that you can use to do all of these or gain these skills, again, there are hundreds of tools. If you look at project management, if you look at Kaizen, if you look at all those, Scrum, Agile, all of these different methodologies, they are filled with these tools. When it comes to content designing as well, you've got something called storyboarding and mind mapping that you do. So these tools are used everywhere in all walks of life, right? And you can continue to learn them, pick them up, and utilize them in things that you do. So a couple of them are, let's say, 5 whys. When you're trying to find out the root cause, you ask why 5 times, and you will get to know what happened. An example of this would be, why were you late to the office today? Correct. So the first why would be, the answer to the first why would be that you started late. From there was a lot of traffic. Okay. Now, why was there a lot of traffic? Of course, you don't have any answer to that because there was. But then, why were you not able to leave on time from home? Right. Answer to that could be that your sock was still wet, so you had to wait for some time. Now, next why would be, why was your sock wet? Because you did not wash it on time. So if you washed it a little before, right, you would be able to make it. So that's just a very hypothetical, simple example of how 5 whys work, but they let you get to the root cause of any problem and then solve it from there. SWOT analysis is another one where you look at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of any particular situation, any scenario, any process, to make decisions from there. Mind mapping is something which I love to use. It helps you really put together your thoughts. And before you create anything, it's good to pick a piece of paper which is blank and see how everything that you need to look at is making a connection. Right? So do check out mind mapping. And of course, something like Pareto principle, which is 80-20 principle, is also brilliant to apply in a lot of different situations. It means that 80% of the problems are caused by 20% of the causes, right? So that's the relation that it has. So if you fix those 20%, your 80% problems are solved. So do take a look at these tools. Of course, we cannot get into the details here. But with that, we did take a look at the 4 key skills. We spoke about emotional intelligence, interpersonal skills, time management, and critical thinking. If you are able to develop these 4, it would be a great place to start from, and you can definitely look at succeeding in future, getting that next promotion, getting that next job that you're looking for, or maybe starting your own business, right? These are very, very key and important. So, well, let's conclude again with Menti. So I would request you to again go to menti.com and enter the code that you see on the screen. I'm also pasting this in the chat window so you can easily access this. And this time, from our discussion on power skills and the 4 key skills that we looked at, we are trying to find out what are your key takeaways as we near the end of 1 hour. There you go. The link is in the chat window. Do access it and fill in your answers. I did paste the link in the chat window. Is it not opening? Okay, well, in that case, you can give me your key takeaways in the chat window itself. There could be something technical with it. Sorry for the issue, but yes, do send your key takeaways in the chat window. Okay, time management. Thank you for that response, Rutuja. How to manage time, tools that you can use. I see something on PowerPoint presentation as well. Okay, power skills. That's brilliant. Improving soft skills day by day. Very important. Empathy. Great. And as I said, this is one of the first webinars that we're doing. So we just wanted to introduce power skills. In future, we will take more detailed sessions so that we can look into the details of each. Self-reflection, brilliant point there. Listening skills, amazing, great. I'm happy that you are taking away a few of these key takeaways from the training, from this particular session. With that, let me also just show you a few key takeaways from my end. So power skills are crucial for career success. If you've not been working on it consciously, please start to work on it now. Adapting to power skills is a continuous process, right? You need to learn each day, 1% every day, and reflect to improve. And to develop the power skills, there are a lot of different tools available, but it's not rocket science. So you can learn, pick them up, implement them, and you will be good to go. Okay, perfect. Any questions that you have in the chat window? I see one. Can being empathetic also have any side effects? Is it possible to lose focus on your own principles? I would say absolutely not, right? So being empathetic is all about understanding someone else's point of view. And you tell them that, hey, while maybe I think differently, I do understand what you are saying, right? That's your point of view. I respect it. So you are not deviating from your own principles. You're not letting go of your own principles, even if while empathizing, you see that there is a difference in point of view, right? So it's absolutely okay. But again, you don't need to move towards, giving advices, sympathizing, because empathy is very different from sympathy. How can I be an active learner? I think that's what I would take from that question. Distracts quickly. Okay, do you mean active learner or active listener? I would request you to clarify that question. Self-obsessed with my own work, is it good for work efficiency? Well, this is something that I relate with. So let's say, I do work on creating content. So sometimes I make videos, and you tend to take a look at your video or what you've created, your work, a lot of times, and you do tend to lose time because of that. To a certain extent, it's good because you can notice and see what could be wrong with it. But then, yes, after a point, it is not good for efficiency. It will lead you to maybe become a perfectionist, and being a perfectionist in all the situations does not make sense, right? Yes, if you're creating something which needs to be top notch, you need to give it your best, but not every situation requires you to be obsessing with your own work. Can introverts have good power skills like communication? Absolutely. So in fact, I would relate to this. Again, I was talking about preferences, right? Now, introversion and extroversion, they are like two different extremes on a scale as to how we deal with our environment around us. So you can have a preference for introversion. Maybe you like to think through things instead of talking to other people. Immediately you think before you talk. And as extroversion, you talk before you think. So personally, even I have preference for introversion. But then when it comes to communication, right, if you have developed that skill that, hey, when it comes to work, when I need to speak up, I am going to speak up very clearly. And in fact, being an introvert also gives you that advantage of being crisp, speaking concisely, and being clear with your point, right? So you definitely can. That's the answer. How to be an active listener? Uh, okay, and distract quickly. Very nice. So try to listen to what the other person is saying. That's where you need to start from. What happens is that when thoughts start to build up in your own head, now these thoughts could be things to do with, let's say, someone else is sharing something with you. You try to find similar points as to some affirmations that, hey, I've gone through this too, and you want to share your story, or maybe you want to defend what your thought is. So you need to keep these aside. First, listen to everything the other person is saying. Now, to develop this, we need to keep away some of the distractions. A good point to start from would be to switch off the notifications in your phone on all the apps, maybe except very key apps like WhatsApp or phone calls and some of the other very key apps. But rest of the apps, switch off the notifications. That will help you be less distracted, and you will also be able to listen to the other person when you're building that conversation. Right? Try to think about the interesting bits. Try to build that curiosity about what the other person is saying, and that will help you. Okay, we'll take one last question given the time in mind. But yes, you can send all these questions maybe to Vinod, and we will try to cover these up through different modes. Do we need to be empathetic even if we know it is a mistake on his or her part? Okay, very, very brilliant question, I would say. Again, this would depend on the kind of relationship that we're talking about over here, of course, right? So in any generic situation, let's say I'm talking about a colleague or a friend, right? There's no harm in being empathetic. And even if the other person has made a mistake, if you're empathetic, that might only help them get over being defensive, and they will be able to accept their mistake sooner. And this is something that I have noticed with my way of handling such situations, right? Okay. Great. Brilliant questions. But yes, we will not be able to take a lot of them right now as we are on top of the hour. But I would like to leave you with a few recommendations, book recommendations on the 4 topics that we looked at. You might have taken a look at some of these books already, but if you haven't, do get a copy. These are some interesting reads, especially the one by Daniel Goleman on emotional intelligence, and How to Win Friends and Influence People. These 2 I've read. The other 2 even I haven't, but I've heard a lot about these books on my bucket list as well. So do take a look at them. Right, with that, we have come to the end of this session. I would see you sometime again soon in any other session. Sorry, we were not able to take up all the questions again, given the time that we had. But I hope you found value in today's webinar, and have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.